All right. Hello, everyone. How's it going? Good evening. I hope you're all right. Welcome to our, I guess, last live session of this exam series. Uh, Obviously, P4 is the end of us all, especially for the A2. It's the end of a long journey. I know the anticipation is killing you. Maybe the anxiety is too. So, I mean, that's why we're here, right? Anyway, we can help to get you through this final hurdle in your business exam. So, welcome to this session, and hopefully, you all come prepared with some questions that you might want to ask me. As always, I'd want to keep this open-ended so that I can listen to your questions, help you with your particular problems. I can see a lot of my regulars are here, Yaman and Mariam. Nice to see you guys back again. Hopefully, your paper 3 went well. And we are more confident going into paper 4. So as I was saying, I would leave the floor open for any questions you guys might have. I can answer them directly. And then I have actually picked out a paper today, the latest one that we have, which is the Feb-March series of 2025. And I just wanted to basically go over the larger scale, strategies that you should remember when attempting paper 4. So how to attempt question 1 when you're looking at it, how to attempt question number 2 when you have very little information to go with. So the question paper I thought was quite challenging, and that's why I picked it for today's session. So I think in the first half I want to keep it open-ended, and then we go into what I have prepared for you. My voice may be a little bit different today. It's just some form of flu that I picked up, so I'll do my best to answer all your questions and as loud and clear as I can. So good, I can see the chat window getting alive. Okay, hello, hi everybody, how's it going? Can you give the structure of both questions and how to write best answers? Yeah, definitely, Rafe. I'll be looking at them. When I look at the paper that I've just mentioned, I will go through the what's an ideal way to present your answer to the examiner. Okay. Hello Sandesh, hello Joshua, how's it going? Does P4 involve calculations? P4 hasn't yet tested you on any calculation, so there is no calculation question, separate calculation question for it. What you may see, like I said, P4 is new, Hala, so there's still a lot of surprises, and every now and then CI throws something new at us each session. So there's a lot of learning that's still going on about P4. But so in terms of calculation, what you might see, right, is maybe a decision tree where all the basic information is given, and you can perform the calculation to find out EMV should you want to use it in your answers, right? So it's not like you'll have to perform complex calculations. Things would be given. If you want to use it to justify your answer, then you can do it, but there's no direct calculation question. Okay. What is the structure for question number 2? So the question number 2 is really, there is no one right way of doing it, in the sense that both 20 markers should have a certain division of knowledge, application, analysis, and evaluation. But in the first question, we see that there's a timeline. You stick to the timeline, then you review the whole thing. In the second one, it's all advice that you're giving to a business in for developing themselves or expanding in the future. So in the future, there is no timeline to be had, but any recommendations, any suggestions, anything you feel might be helpful to them, you just bring it in. So it's very, very open-ended, kind of like 12 marker, but just a bit longer. And I'll show you the question I picked today. Question number 2 in the case study that I have today is one where you're only really given 2 to 3 lines of information, and the rest of it you have to come up on your own. So that's why I want to just sort of take you through that question to prepare you for a situation where you don't have too much information. Then how do you figure out what do you have to write? So I would recommend that you stick around for that, Joshua. Okay. So how do you write other factors? When you say other factors, the two things that are easy to relate is anything that has to do with any other department. So let's say the questions on finance strategy, then the other factors would be marketing, operations, and HR. The second other factors to consider are your external environment factors. So it's, if you think about those things, you might be able to come up with a bunch of other factors that influence a business decision. Yes, Rafe, we'll be looking at a past paper today. uh, I won't be solving entire past papers. I've done that many times. You can also look at a few videos on the live playlist of our website and on YouTube, and you'll see I've done full papers. What I want to do today is what I basically did for Pete. Hello everyone. Sorry about that little glitch. I'll be very honest. I kicked a wire, and it took all the electricity away from us. So it was my fault. I apologize for the little delay. Anyways, we'll get back into it. Okay. So Yimon, a question that recently stumbled is a 20-mark question. What is the best accounting? Could you please explain the best way to tackle? Okay. So Yimon, the question that you're talking about is a question that I've actually solved in a live P4 session in the previous month. So when you go through a playlist, there's an exact question which asks you to talk about finance accounting strategy. But I will give you a general view of how to attempt those. So what Yimon is basically referring to is a paper that came in November 2024, and the question was it was a second question. So you weren't given any timeline. You were asked to come up with the future, and the question was discuss how XYZ company can use finance and accounting strategy to develop their future strategies, blah blah blah. Now in that question, you don't have a lot of appendices, you don't have a lot of data, and the idea is to come up with your own sense of what are the things that might be important for a business. Okay, and I want everybody to listen to this very very carefully. Okay, if a question is on, let's say, finance strategy, right, and you don't have a lot of information, if it's question 2, you will probably not have a lot of information. That's where the examiner is actually trying to test you, that can you judge out of the entire finance and accounting unit that you've learned about in AS and A2, can you suggest to this business what are some of the things that might be useful for them? And what you do in those situations is, where you don't have a lot of information, is that you basically go through your entire understanding of finance and accounting from AS all the way to A2 strategy chapter, right? And when you think about it, you have about 7 chapters, 3 in AS, 4 in A2, right? Across those 7 chapters, you need to come up with at least 3, maybe 4 big pointers, big chapters, big topics that you can recommend to any company, that look, this is something that's absolutely important for the future of a company when you're looking at it from a financial perspective. And first thing that definitely comes to mind, even if you just go through your A2 syllabus, right, first thing that you mention is that a company can look at its statement of profit or loss and statement of financial position to look at their profitability, cost structure, revenue structure, how the capital structure is, how to manage cash and things like that. So that becomes your first point of recommendation. Then if you can use the financial accounts, then you can definitely use ratios along with it as well. So there'll be a paragraph dedicated to how a company can use ratio analysis to better understand what to do. So for example, if in the case study they had mentioned somewhere a loan was taken, so you will talk about in the ratios that gearing ratio must be looked at before determining how much more loan could be taken, or should it be taken or not. So then a whole paragraph should be dedicated to ratios. Then you've also learned about investment appraisal, right? And investment appraisal is always undertaken whenever you are investing in machinery, expansion, things like that. So if your suggestion, or if somewhere in the case study you saw that they might be moving to a new factory, getting new equipment, blah blah blah, then you will definitely recommend that the company should also look at investment appraisal, because it will determine whether you should make an investment or not. So the idea, and of course you can go into AS, and I would maybe dedicate a paragraph to discussing cash flow, right? Cash flow is so important to any business's survival. So the onus is on the student to come up with the right finance and accounting concepts that will help that company come up with the right solution going forward. So similarly, if there was a question, let's say on HR strategy, right, where you're not given a lot of information, it's question 2, and you're asked to develop something for the future along the HR strategy side. What you do in that question is the same thing that we did for finance. First, go through entire A2 content of HR, and you will talk about that. Oh, HR, first thing you need is a clear and a really nicely built organizational structure where management and communication is clear, authority is clear, delegation, blah blah blah. That becomes one suggestion. Then the other suggestion would be, well, along with that, you need to have proper communication, which was the second chapter. So we'll mention different means that you can use to improve communication. Then you would dedicate a paragraph to leadership, because that's also part of your entire HR strategy. And then you get to the last HR strategy chapter, where you would talk about things such as MBO, things such as using multiple types of contracts to get flexibility, and ultimately determining whether you have a soft HRM strategy going forward or a hard HRM strategy going forward. So in question number 2s, where not a lot of information is given, you basically first go through your A2 chapters and use that as your suggestion, then bring 1 or 2 from AS, and then you sum it all together towards the end. Okay, so Yaman, I think that was your question on accounting thing, and I think I was able to answer. For any other strategy chapter where you get a second question, question number 2, where you have to advise things for the future, you have to rely on the strength of your understanding, and you have how much you remember from your syllabus, and the major topics, the major chapters. That's what you suggest. Okay. Excuse me. Should we anticipate? Yeah, Shahan, contingency planning in paper 3 again was a huge surprise. I had not anticipated that it might also be tested, because they have always mentioned that strategy is particularly used in paper 4. So again, learning, I'll be honest, but to assume OS that what's already been tested may not come again in paper 4 would not be advisable. My advice to you is, because there are surprises every exam series, don't take any chance. And the way to approach your preparation, guys, is that your strategy chapters, you only fully understand them once you've gone through the entire unit, right? So for example, HR, once you've done organization structure, communication, leadership, then you get to strategy, and that's when you fully understand what it takes to make HR strategy, right? So when you are preparing for P4, don't just stick with the strategy chapters, revise the other ones as well as you did for P3, because anything could be tested. Okay. Osmin, so question 2 seems to be harder to answer. Yeah, because question 1 has a timeline, they have all the pointers, you don't have to come up with too much application, it's already given in the case, so you can make sense of that. But question number 2 is an advice question, where you may be given 1 or 2 clues, but no more than that. So question 1 is basically it's testing, can you connect the different dots? Question 2 is asking, can you come up with a strategy on your own? So 2 very different ways of asking questions. And yeah, I would agree that question 2 may be a little bit harder to answer. How many points do you think is effective? Okay, so Ma, what you're saying is difficult to answer as a general rule, because the type of question you have will determine. For example, if you have a question which says, should ABC company use the scenario planning model when determining the future plan of the company? In that scenario, you have to definitely discuss scenario planning. And other than that, you have to come up with at least 2 other techniques from the business strategy chapter. So 3 techniques at a minimum, or 3 different full complete points should minimum be there. And then you have a really wholesome final evaluation paragraph, where in the first half of that final paragraph, you're summing up all the evaluation that you'd given in the earlier paragraphs. And then in the second half of that paragraph, you are talking about other things that they could do going forward. So that's how, I guess, if you want a number, minimum 3 equally strong points before the evaluation is advised. What are the important topics? Look, business strategy is likely to be tested, but then again, some of you feel that contingency plans are a bit tested, so it may not be. I think finance strategy should be taken seriously. That's a topic that hasn't been tested a lot. So, there's a tendency to balance things out by CI. So they may give that. again, it's really a guess at this point. My assessment usually bases on what are the things that have not been tested so much yet, and that might be tested more. So in my view, that's HR strategy and finance strategy. So if you want to focus on any two particular parts more, then that's what I would say. Okay. um Will the first question always be an answer? Yeah. So what we've seen historically, and hopefully it stays the same way, Isa, is that your first question. So the two questions are very different from one another. The first question will ask you to reflect upon a strategy that the business had already implemented in the previous years, and you can't do that without a timeline. So it will be a strategy assessment of the past. Question number two is again projection and recommendations for the future. Okay. Now, what are your thoughts on the alleged paper leak for business? But just curious. Girly pop. I try to ignore these things because just it doesn't make sense. There's no logic in it. For example, my students claiming that they saw that the paper got leaked at 1:30 p.m. They had their exam at 2 p.m. So I don't understand how you get possession of a leaked paper within half an hour. You go and solve it and also score an A, and you'll be great. Just there's too many ifs and buts. And right now there's a lot of sharks out there that are looking for unsure souls, like some of our students are, that maybe there's a chance that it's real and it's just scams and wanted to make money. So if you spend 2 years on something, you're more prepared than you think you are, and that's what I would recommend for you to focus on. Sir, after P3, I prepared scenario planning. Yeah, so don't take any chances. Prepare for everything, and it's a surprise, really. So I'm preparing. I'm doing my prep. All right, Anas, welcome on board. This would help you for your P4, inshallah. How to answer market strategy? Because you mean marketing strategy questions, Mez? If you ask about marketing strategy, then the process is the same. You'll be asked about topics that you would see in the unit of marketing. So you'll be given information in the form of elasticities. You may be given in the form of moving average. There'll be a bit of globalization. Excuse me. There'll be a bit of what else is there? Moving average. Yeah. So elasticities, moving average, globalization, and marketing plan. So if it's a marketing strategy question, it's those four topics that are going to be tested. And that's all 8.1 and 8.2 from marketing. So you have to know those really, really well to know their advantages, their disadvantages. And as long as you're applying it to the business in question, you should be okay. Yeah, delighted. I am going to start in a minute. Sorry. I feel like we have something regarding marketing because I was. Yeah, so although it's hard to say what's tested and what's not tested. Will you test it again? But if that's your guess, then I would spend more time on it. So I will okay, I will cook paper like Spurs will cook menu in your dreams, Mr. Hajrawan. That question still remains to be answered. I do think it's going to be the ugliest final of any two clubs playing in a final, but let's hope it's more red than white. Yeah, inspired. Absolutely right. I agree with you. Can you explain question two and evaluation? Yeah, I'm gonna do question two right now. Okay, guys. I'm just gonna answer the last question. One units have the lowest chance of appearing. Mr. Papaya. Look, honestly, even if you ask me, even after so many years of experience, it's all guesswork at this point, right? But if you ask, like I said, I base it on what hasn't been tested so much, which would be HR and finance. So that's what I would say. Yeah, Yamon, so I'm doing a question two using HR today. So that should give you an idea how to go about it. You're welcome, girly. So how can we solve both the question? Okay, I'm getting to that right. I'm getting into a question. Hi from Mauritius. Hello, Sukun. I hear you guys have amazing beaches. I'd like to visit someday. So can you please once explain all the strategies for like list them? Mariam, what do you mean all the strategies for all the units? I'm not sure I understand what your question means. Jorge, if you are writing AS level in October, what study technique? Jorge, my friend, I'd love to help you with AS prep, but I just want to keep today's session for A2 because they have their exams tomorrow. But you can always reach out to me. I'm on Instagram or through Alt, and I'll be happy to guide you directly. Okay. Okay, so I'm just gonna guys, how about I start the question? I know a lot of you are waiting for that. I want to get into the paper. I think that might be an important thing for you tomorrow. So greetings from Uzbekistan. Wow, we have such a global audience today. Uzbekistan, hello, how are you doing, my friend from Uzbekistan? I had another student who had signed up from Uzbekistan for my live sessions. His name was yeah, I forget, it's a difficult one, but anyways, welcome, right? So no, girly, each marketing P cannot have a different paragraph because the whole marketing P is the 4 Ps is just one small part of the entire marketing plan. So if you go have a marketing strategy question, one whole paragraph will be marketing plan, and P's will be part of it. The other paragraph will be elasticity. The other one would be globalization. Will have to be a mix of it. Okay, Mariam, so I think what you're saying is, can I list all the major topics in each of the strategy chapters? Right? Is that what you're saying? All right. So this is what I have for you today. Okay. Let's focus on this for a minute, and time permitting, I will come back to your individual questions again. Okay. So first things first, I know a lot of you would be worried about your time management. How do you go about it? Okay, that's too thick. So you have a total of 1 hour and 15 minutes, right? That makes it exactly 75 minutes. So the first order of things is the whole part about reading the case study. You dedicate easily 15 minutes to it, right? That's just a given. You can't really speed through it anymore. You have to you have to spend the time, make sense of things, go through the appendices. Believe me, these 15 minutes that you spend, calmly through the case study will speed up your writing, because you'd have understood the case study better. So do this. You've got your 15 minutes, you get that out of the way. So you've got simply 1 hour to answer 2 questions, right? Then first order of business is your question number 1. Simply divide it into 2. You've got 30 minutes for question number 1. You've got 30 minutes for question number 2. So that's the division of time that I recommend. Okay, obviously give or take maybe 35 minutes for the first question. What I also recommend, by the way, is don't go to question 1 before doing question 2, but when you look at the questions, you would know that of the 2 questions, which one you feel more confident with, right? That one of the 2 where you can easily score a 15. And I would slightly tweak my time management and give a little bit more time to that question where I feel more confident in scoring than the one I don't, right? Because what you're confident doing well, just make sure you maximize that opportunity, get like a 15 to 16 out of it if you can get there. That makes your life a lot easier, because there will be a pressure of the clock obviously winding down, and all the students that have come back to me have always said that we were not able to finish the second question, right? So if you have 1 hour, you have to do 2 20-mark questions, and when really it's difficult to do justice to 2 equally, then the one that you're good with, you back it up more. Maybe I'd give it 35, maybe even 40 minutes to that question, if that's question number 1. And then for question number 2, I would try to finish it up in 20-25 minutes, so quickly wrap it up. Okay, so maximize your chances. Make that call by looking at the questions and seeing which one are you more comfortable with, and spend a little bit more time on that. Okay, so that's the word with time management. Your question number 1, again, 20 marker, right? How it is divided is the same as both questions have the same division of marks. So you will see that your knowledge is worth 3 marks, application is 2, analysis is 8, evaluation is 7, right? So the easy thing is that since knowledge has 3 marks out of 20, that means you shouldn't shy away from writing a definition here and there, explaining how things work, because it's still a big chunk of your answer. So for example, if there's a question on let's say marketing, right, and you are talking about globalization as a second point in your answer, I would start by explaining what is globalization. It's the free movement of people, products, and money across the world, making trade easier and blah, blah, blah. So, things like that will start adding to your knowledge marks. So I will definitely reserve a little bit of space and time for that. Then your application is obviously the timeline, the appendices, and any appendix that's given in any timeline must be discussed. Okay, and I'll come to that in a minute, how to maximize your time and still do justice with each appendix. So your application is the appendices and the timeline. Your analysis obviously are your pros and cons, right? And this is something that we can definitely talk about. So globalization, pros and cons, we know you can expand, become global, bigger brand name, economies of scale. Drawbacks, you will need a different marketing strategy, you will need to hire people, communication problems, big business problems, things like that. So spend a lot of time in explaining the advantages and disadvantages. But what's really, really important, and I see students sort of lose a sense of that in the answer writing, is that they end up writing generic advantages, that this is the advantage of globalization, that you will become a multinational, but they don't apply it to the business that's in question, right? It's often a sort of an oversight that students make. Whatever advantage, disadvantage you are trying to prove in your analysis, make sure you are applying it to the business. So the business will become multinational and they will have this country into that opportunity and they will sell their product in these many countries. So be specific in your analysis rather than simply writing that, oh, globalization means more sales and more profit. Talk about the business, that if they were struggling in the past and now they're going global, so think about that change, that they'll be able to cover up for their losses in the past by making more revenue from international markets in the future. So that connection with the business and applying the advantage, disadvantage to the business, that's very important. Okay, then you have your evaluation, and your evaluation, as we know, is divided across the answer. It's not always the last paragraph only. Last paragraph must be evaluation, obviously, but at the end of each paragraph, throw in an evaluation point right in the end, because you want to be able to sum up things in the end and what the expectation is in both 20 markers. The most important part of your answer, something that you shouldn't forget to do, is a nice healthy final paragraph of evaluation, right? And though that let me just bring that here. So of evaluation, right? So I'm talking about the last para here, the final one where you are giving your judgment. If this is, let's say, your last para and you divide it into 2 parts, the first part, sorry guys about my throat, the first paragraph, it should be a summary of all previous evaluations. So what that means is your paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3. If you have 3 paragraphs and you have sort of an evaluation given at the end of it, which you should, then the first thing you do is sum it up. That's about 40% of your answer. The other 60% is then looking at all the other factors that might influence the decision. So this is where you link it to the external environment. For example, you link it to other departments, right? You give your recommendations. So the final paragraph has a lot of weightage, and that's it's all evaluation, right? And again, we've gone through that. When you're thinking about evaluation, think about words such as giving a decision, providing a recommendation, saying something in support, identifying obstacles, linking it to the external environment. So that part is all towards the end. Okay, Can the evaluation be something not related directly to the question? Then it would be off point, I think. Your evaluation is always of the situation that you have discussed in your answer, and the situation you've discussed should be in line with the question, right? So I think stay on point rather than talk about other things. As long as there's any link with it, then go ahead, but be sure of it. So Hassan Yaqub, where you're asking how the evaluation marks are divided in the entire question. Like I said, if you have, let's say, 3 paragraphs, 3 different points, and then you bring in the final evaluation paragraph, at the end of each paragraph, just throw in a line or two of evaluation. So you have 4 different spots where evaluation should be spread out. First, at the end of the first 3 paragraphs, and then the final paragraph as a whole. Okay. Can you give an example of giving evaluations in the previous paras? Right. So let's say there's a question on marketing strategy, and you see that moving average is given in the question, right? So you'll talk about what moving average does, that it's a method of forecasting sales into the future. It uses previous quarters data. Some of the data will be given in the case study, that Q3 number was this, Q4 number was that. Using that, you will determine what were the good quarters, what are the bad quarters, and the advantage and disadvantage of market moving average is that you can change your marketing mix, you can decide what resources to use, when you can decide your marketing budget. So that's sort of analysis of the moving average, right? Just at the end of it, my evaluation of moving average would be that yes, this is based on previous quarters. However, previous quarters are no guarantee that the future is going to go the same way, because there's so much in the external environment that might change. So even though this is a useful tool, the company must use other techniques as well to be fully sure of its future sales. So just evaluating that particular topic at the end of that paragraph, Yamon, that's what I would do. And then at the end of each paragraph, after doing that, just bring them all together and say, looking at the business as a whole, if they use moving average with its flaws, if they did marketing planning, if they did globalization, they could achieve this. However, going forward, there are these other factors that you also must look at. So that's how I would sum it up. Yeah, so Girly Pop, what it could have done. So, for example, if you're talking about the timeline question, then you would mention, these are the things that they could have done differently. Or you would say things like, well, these are the things that should change if they want a better future. So, yeah, those things are coming towards the end. Yes, we did make a guest paper. We'll be sharing it sometime during this session. So, we'll just wait out for it. You left us after teaching. Yeah, that's all. I apologize, Mr. Ayan. I myself didn't leave you. Circumstances from both parties led to that. But look, you still have me through YouTube. Second, Mr. Temo, again, everything's important. I don't want to guide you one way and say that this is going to come, and if it doesn't come, maybe focus more on HR and finance. That's what I would do. Yeah, Hassan, the first 3 paragraphs, the first 3 points, the minimum that you have to do are all a combination of knowledge, application, assets. So let me show you this. I think if this is my last para, then what a lot of you are asking is that how do you do the first few bits, right? So the way to go about it would be something like this, right? So I go into my first paragraph. This would be a combination of full knowledge, application, analysis, evaluation. Let's say the question is on operation strategy, right? And they're asking, discuss how the company can use the operation strategy to come up with a plan, blah, blah, blah. So my first paragraph, I'll probably dedicate this to a discussion of quality. Right, quality, you talk about what quality is, talk about how they're managing quality in the business, using QA and TQM, their advantages, disadvantages, any drawbacks, any limitations, anything you want to bring in here. So that's my first paragraph, right? Then, excuse me, guys. So sorry about this. Again, I do the same thing for second paragraph in the sense that knowledge, application, analysis, evaluation, all present. And I will look at the case study if they have given any information. Let's say there's a CPA diagram within them. So I'll talk about CPA diagram, what it does, its application, the numbers that are given in the case study, analysis, the advantages and disadvantages, any evaluation that comes with it. And then perhaps I can do it for the next one with a discussion on, let's say, lean production. So again, explaining what lean production is, its application, analysis, evaluation, I do a whole bunch of it. And then once I'm done with these, and if I've exhausted all the points that I have, then I go into my final last paragraph, which is, if you notice, and let me just highlight this, all the evaluations at the end of each paragraph, all I've done is I brought them here as a summary. So this would be brought here, this would be brought here, this would be brought here, to sum it up, and then you finish your answer. So that's the recommended way. Now you, Abdullah, you spread your evaluation throughout your answer. Don't reserve it all for the final. The final paragraph is absolutely necessary, but in order to fill up this part of the final answer, right, this part here, this is important. Without this, your answer isn't complete. So in order to do this, you need to already have evaluation that's placed within the answer earlier. Okay. Basically the first part of it is summing up previous evaluations, and then additional evaluation comes after that. Also for the whole business strategy, do you evaluate the whole strategy in one para, another strategy in another para? Yes, girly pop, that's right. So if it's a business strategy question and you're asked, let's say they mention blue ocean strategy, so you will dedicate one full paragraph. In fact, not even one full paragraph. What I recommend is that the technique that they have mentioned in the case study, they would have a lot of information in it related to that technique. I would spend like a whole page on it, right? At least 1/3 of your answer should be dedicated to the technique that they have mentioned, and then each paragraph for each other techniques, minimum 3, maximum 4 in total. That's what you have to present, and then summation in the end. Okay. Free float and total float calculation. Yeah, so basically, if it's a CPA question, any numbers that you are calculating, the critical path itself, free float, total float, that forms the application. Numbers are a great way to show application, so use it more. Yeah, so an intro para is not needed. Not necessarily. An intro paragraph would perhaps be something like, let's say if it's a question on business strategy, you would say that the larger concept at play here is strategic management, where a company goes through stages of analysis, choice, and implementation. And we are going to discuss all three to formulate a strategy for the company. And then you go into it. So, I wouldn't spend too much time on the introduction. It doesn't add too much value. Get into the points. You already have limited time available. Would you recommend 2 advantages in their own paragraph? Yeah, Yaman, 2, maybe time permitting, 2 is great. But even if you can bring one advantage, one disadvantage of each point in each para, that shows a balanced argument. So that might be okay. But again, it just depends on how quickly you write, how much time you have to go in more detail than need be. Marcelo, can we see an example of last developed paragraph? Yeah, okay. I'm getting into question number 2. I think I'm getting a sense that everybody's okay with timeline, but the second question where you have to come up with things, those might be more troubling. So I'm going to get into that. You're always welcome, girly pop. Love the name though. Do you have evaluations throughout answers? Yes, Shano. So at the end of each para, like I suggested here, summary of that in the final paragraph, and then other areas as well. Okay. The guest paper has just been shared in the chat window. You guys are more than welcome to go take a look at it. So it would be that. So Abdullah, evaluation isn't always the disadvantage. Your analysis is the advantage and the disadvantages. So evaluation cannot be disadvantage. Evaluation is always a judgment, something that you feel that, or what's the process going forward? Will it work? Will it not work? What other things it might need? So So it's not the disadvantages. It's more like what else is needed for this to be a success, or what are the things that might make it a failure. So it's a judgment rather than disadvantages. How to do a finance strategy question. I think somebody asked me this a little bit earlier, so I've discussed it in about 5-8 minutes earlier in this one. But there's an earlier live session of P4 that I did. If you can go through the playlist, you will find it, where I've done a long, full entire question of finance accounting. So I think that might be useful for you. Okay, so let me start with a question, right? What you already know, hopefully, is how to divide your time, how much each element is worth from knowledge to evaluation, and how to ideally divide up your answer. Okay, now when you see the paper, it will obviously look something like this. 1 second. Now, Mr. Radeep, that's not nice. If you want to stick around, and I would apologize. Okay. Right. So let's get into it now. Things that I recommend once you know what the time management situation is like. Your first question will definitely be the timeline question, right? And in this one, the timeline question is on marketing strategy. So evaluate. All question ones will look like this, right? They will start with the word evaluate. They will have some form of particular strategy in there. So this one is marketing. So evaluate DCE's marketing strategy between 2019 and 2024. So in some situations, you're given more years than the ones that are being tested. But obviously, you only stick with the years that are asked in the question. No need to go back and forth in other years. And in this situation, the timeline is everything really that you need for your answer, right? This at the beginning, this is like a little background of where it's all started, but the real meat is here. And really, in this question, they have asked you about the entire timeline, right? Now, it is very difficult here to obviously determine what year to skip, what to not skip. First of all, the examiner wants to see a full history evaluation. So it means that you shouldn't be skipping years, but what you should do is all the years which have appendix in it. So appendix 2, appendix 3, appendix 4. So that's 2020, that's 2022, and 2023. These are an absolute must. You have to discuss these. And if I look at 2020, right? So this is a business basically on. It's funny, that when I was reading this case study, it's like all the academy in a nutshell, or a part of it. It was so crazy. I was like, wow, maybe they did a study on us. But they're basically online teaching. They're going into digital education, online tutors, become a private limited company. One of them becomes a marketing director. They use social media and website. They want to provide premium quality using price skimming techniques. And then the whole paragraph is really the foundation of the business. So I will definitely spend a lot of time, because simple fact is that there's a lot of information in here regarding the marketing mix, and we know the marketing mix is a big part of your marketing plan. You've got a discussion on website, which is place, social media, this is promotion. They talk about pricing here. The product is of premium quality. So this paragraph, I'll probably say that this will form the marketing mix and discuss, how integrated this marketing mix is. And because it's a high quality product, they're able to use price skimming. It also makes sense for a new, especially online teaching business, to have online presence. That's why they have a website, they have social media accounts. So I will fully exhaust this paragraph. And then this would, by the way, be a full paragraph in itself. Then you go to 2020, and since it's at appendix 1, you will give special attention to this paragraph, or this amount of information. So revenue grows, Daniel outlines approach to quality, see appendix 1. I'll just show it in a minute. Social media subscribers rapidly increase. So again, you can link this to 2019. There's also a lot of reliance on word of mouth promotion. So there's a lot of points to already discuss here, but if you're discussing 2020, then appendix 1 must be part of your discussion. Or if you look at it in a different way, appendices should be discussed, which means 2020 should be a big part of your answer. And when I look at appendix 1, it's really not that much, right? you have a couple of statements here. DC believes its employees are central to its success. All tutors are qualified teachers with at least 3 years teaching experience. So, this is part of product development. This is part of quality management. So you will evaluate, obviously you will say the analysis is the benefit of a good product is high sales, but the evaluation of it, you would say that this quality isn't just the responsibility of marketing, it's the responsibility of operations department to have quality control, quality assurance, or whatever else system you might want to recommend here. So the evaluation could be other departments and support from other departments that can come with it, right? Similarly, the other point is students are encouraged to provide feedback, which is used to adapt the service offered. 86% of students stated that they would recommend DC to a friend. So again, just mentioning how well their marketing strategy has been. So this should definitely be part of your answer. This forms the application that I would summarize it by saying that they have qualified teachers, and there's a feedback form which has seen a high number of word of mouth references, which shows that their chosen marketing or promotion strategy was a sound one, and 2020 proved to be a good year as shown by the growth in revenue and employees. So I will do a full mixture. This would be like at least 3/4 of a page, the size of the paragraph, because of the information that's also given in the appendix. Okay. Then notice 2021. Right, 2021 does not have appendix, and it's just a couple of lines. So I wouldn't spend an entire paragraph on this. And what I can do smartly in this one, what I recommend you also do, is maybe combine 2020 and 2021 and talk about it together, because 2021 really does not have a lot of information, right? I will do 2022 separately, again with the two appendices. Oops, that's not right. Here, so this would be another paragraph. Then I will do this one separately, 2023, maybe 2023 and 2024. I combine them into one paragraph. So smartly see where you don't have too much information, combine it with the year which has a lot of information, so that you save time, you also have more stuff to talk about. But I will also say this, that let's say we're discussing 2020 and 2021. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different points of discussion, plus in the appendix there were 2 more. So there are 7 points to discuss between 2020 and 2021. You do not have to discuss all 7, right? CIA very clearly says in the exam report that students need to identify which are the more important points to discuss and only discuss those. So out of these 7, I'll pick 3 to 4 that I know must be discussed. Obviously, the appendix for sure, and any 2 or 3 points from the timeline here. So you should be choosy, but choosy with those topics that have a bigger impact on the business. You should discuss those more and forget about the other ones. Okay, so you follow the timeline as is, and once you've done 2024, after this will you plug in your evaluation paragraph. Okay. Company should I define? No, so defining private limited company isn't really required. What you define is things. For example, in this one, let's say we talk about this is an approach to promotion. So digital promotions is being discussed here. It's a big part of their promotion strategy. I would discuss that. Things that you are going to discuss, define that. Don't define everything. And then there are ratios in P4. Guess where? But ratios evaluation already came, right? So Hassan, do not assume that if something's been tested in one paper will not be shown in another. That's the wrong approach altogether. Ratios are one of the biggest parts of finance as a whole, so you shouldn't count them out in any paper. Okay, so that's basically the first question, where you go through all the appendices. So in the first question, you will have discussed this appendix, you will have discussed this appendix, this one, and appendix for all of this is for the first question. And I think that's why it's some students find it easier, because you know, all the information that you need is in front of you and you're really just making sense of it. So, you know, maybe question one is the question that you spend more time on. Sir, you mean go all yes, preferably, but write less emphasis. No, I'm saying more emphasis on the year that has appendixes. The ones that don't, less emphasis on those. Yeah, right. So since question number one already presents the information to you, so you get to choose things, right? Question number two, particularly in this one, if I show you question number two and I ask you, one of you or anyone here who knows how to answer this question, what do you think? This is a toughie, right? I really think this was a tough question. The question is, advise Daniel on the importance of transformational leadership to ensure the survival of DCE. Okay, now the question is very clearly on the importance of transformational leadership. But we know that transformational leadership is just a small part in chapter 7.3 called leadership. It is just one of the 5 leadership theories that you will learn about. So how do you determine what else to write in this answer if this is all that you have to go with? And especially because let me show you the information that's given in the case study. That will make it even tougher. Okay, so just follow through. Don't lose concentration right now, right? So basically what happened was, this was an online tutor business. They did all of these things, blah, blah, blah. In the end, Daniel and Carl collect market research, and DC offers face-to-face revision workshops in response to a fall in revenue from online tutoring. Okay, so they have gone from being online to being face-to-face. So the business has slowed down. And then what is next for DC? Notice this paragraph is the only thing that's given here, right? I'll come to your comments in a minute. I just want to focus on this right now. Let me read through this. Competition is increasing, but Daniel and Carl do not want to compromise on the quality of the service the business provides. So they still want to provide high quality content, and, you know, hire the best qualified teachers, blah, blah, blah. However, so that's good. That's to do with the quality side, which means operations, marketing, right? However, they are both aware that DCE needs to change if it is to survive, right? Now, this is where the second question actually begins. Carl thinks that transformational leadership, right? This is what we saw in the question. Transformational leadership is the key to survival, but Daniel remains uncertain. So if you think about it, this is the only statement that is given that's related to question number 2. So what do you think? How would you answer this question? What would you do if you know that there's an online business, there's a marketing strategy that you have evaluated in question number 1, and in question number 2, where they're asking you that transformational leadership is what they need to survive, this information was given. What would you write? Okay, meaning of transformational leadership. Let's form this answer, right? Let's form this answer. So if this is the question, you guys see it? Yeah. So my structure would obviously start with, so this is, let's say, my first paragraph. Sorry, 1 second. So this is my first paragraph here. And I would first talk about not defining a transformational leadership straight away. Yeah, that's what the question is. But the opening paragraph, the starting paragraph, needs to take the answer to the root of the question. That what is leadership actually a part of? Or what is transformational leadership actually a part of? And this is where you will start that the first thing the business, oops, sorry, where did it go? Yeah. Right? What I would start by writing is that what Daniel and Carl need to do is decide what the right HRM strategy for them is going to be. And that will determine what the correct leadership style should be. So go to the very fundamental of that and say that yes, leadership is important, but it's part of a larger situation. And then once I've given mine, and I will mention here as application that DCE is struggling, right? They mentioned that in the case study. And therefore, you need a change of leader. That's what the owners are thinking. And then I will go into my second paragraph where I will start by first defining what leadership is as a whole, right? So define this so that you straight away get some marks for knowledge. And then you will talk about transformational leadership here. Okay, so transformational leadership, you will explain what it is. That will get the knowledge marks. You will take, examples from the case study. Let's say they were talking about training of tutors. In the case study, they mentioned that Carl and the other guy, they provide training. In that training, if they basically show leadership qualities, and obviously transformational leadership is, becoming good role models, helping others grow, training others, blah, blah, blah. By doing that, it will have certain advantages, it will have certain disadvantages. And then you talk about, will it work or not work? What are the other things needed? Other factors that are part of it. So that would be, this would be the knowledge bit. This would be application, this would be analysis, this would be evaluation. And part of your evaluation would be, as we know that only transformational leadership is just one of the 5 theories. Your evaluation also includes recommendations, right? So I would also recommend here that maybe they use the other one. Let's say we talk about contingency, right? So there is type of contingency leadership. There is one behavioral where we talk about autocratic, democratic, laissez-faire. So give those suggestion as well that leadership is important, but transformational may be one of them, but it's also worth exploring other ones. That becomes part of your evaluation. Okay, then since they had asked you about leadership, this would be like a page, right? I would spend quite a bit of time because that's the central part of my question. But I know, and I'm just going to take you to the side here for a little while, that I know that my A2, my A2 HR, right? This is my unit 7. It doesn't just talk about leadership, right? Leadership is one part of it. It also talks about organizational structure, right? It also talks about business communication, and then there's your HRM strategy. So what I recommend, and this is the key to it all, whatever I've been saying, this is what I've been basically trying to get to, is that if you're not given too much information in the case study, then whatever you're given in the question, talk about that, and then slowly go through each chapter and see what else can you suggest. So for example, my second paragraph would be on organizational structure. Then I spend some time that you need clear business communication as well. And then I will sum it up that you need to have a clear strategy, you need to have MBO, you need to have contracts and such things. So they're basically testing not only the depth of your HR knowledge, but also how well can you, predict things for the future and come up with an HR plan. So that's where, if this was my paragraph 1 on leadership, this would be second, this would be third, this would be fourth, and then the 5th one would be a final evaluation. Okay, so again, doing this here for my leadership paragraph, then maybe change paragraphs. I'm sorry if it's all over the place. So this would be my third point here. Here I will talk about, let's say, organizational structure, what it means, how they can implement it, advantages, disadvantages, evaluation, and whatever else you want to say in it. So that's where these tricky ones can be solved by just trusting your knowledge and going through all the other parts that it needs to have a clear HR strategy. Right? Hopefully that makes sense. There's a few questions. Yeah, so I think I did just write a paragraph on leadership as an example, so you can take your cues from that. Does Kaizen determining changes in leadership? The leader guides all the employees consistently, rather one-off. Look, Kaizen has less to do with leadership and more to do with individual workers wanting to do more. So I don't think it fits in directly. You can say that part of quality circles, if you do want to bring it in production, that quality circles require leadership to be present and listen to workers. So you can bring that here. Transform the culture, inspire workers. Yeah, absolutely right, Mustafa. Can we talk about Goldman's? Yeah, absolutely. Emotional intelligence is part of leadership. You can definitely talk about that. In fact, Ma, you could have talked about the Goldman's emotional intelligence as evaluation of paragraph 1, that all leaders must also have emotional intelligence to be, effective leaders. If you start directly from leadership, that might also be okay, but I think just a couple of lines, maybe 2 to 3, to set up the answer, that what the situation is and what you're going to talk about in your answer. I think it might be advised to do that. Hania, this will stay on the YouTube page, so you can access it anytime. Does anyone have do we mention? So yeah, so whenever there's an HR question of strategy, then you have to discuss either their soft HRM or hard HRM, whichever they are, whichever one you recommend, you have to mention it. Yeah, the other types of leaderships, the behavioral, contingency, whatever, are the other factors to consider to do with leadership. Yeah, Daniel, that's what I'm saying. When you suggest other leadership theories, they become the evaluation here, because evaluation is also suggestions, so they will count as that. What's the maximum number of years I can talk about in Q1? 2019 to 2024. So however, whatever the question says, those years must be discussed. Do we always relate it to an organizational strategy in the end? I remember you mentioned in the previous video that strategic and management chapters are exclusively for P4. I'm not sure I said something like this. I'm to be honest, I don't fully understand what you're saying. What do you mean by overall organizational strategy? You mean in line with the objective? Musa 511, could you clarify a little bit? So, no, so not necessarily how transformational leadership improves organizational structure, but just that going forward from an HR perspective, a clear organizational structure where there's delegation where needed, there is control where it's needed, whether it's centralized or decentralized, those discussions should also be included. Can we skip any one of these? You mean that these of the 5 paragraphs in question 2, can you skip anyone? Look, if I were to skip one really because of lack of time, I'd probably do that with business communication, because it's the smallest of the 4 chapters, but I would definitely rely on the other ones. Motivation theories aren't really required, but if you present it, you might be credited. You will be credited for it. Can we add age level leaderships in para 3 instead of organization? No. So, there's a reason why there's an A2 level leadership chapter. It's because whatever you did in AS is now superseded by things that you've done in A2. So in AS, you saw 4 types of leadership styles. They are already part of the behavioral theory. And apart from that, there are 4 other theories. So if there's anything to be discussed from leadership, it has to be from the A2 chapter. Yeah, so different workers require, not different workers delighted, because you can't have a different leadership style with each worker. What you're supposed to say is that different tasks or different roles require different types of leaders or the leadership styles. So that's a more appropriate way to say it. What? How am I asking myself a question? How is Jawar Hussain asking Jawar Hussain a question? What about marketing? Which chapters other than strategy? Oh, this is so trippy. All right, Jawar. Well, basically, marketing has just 2 chapters. The first chapter only has 2 topics in it. One is elasticity. The other one was moving average. So other than that, the other chapter is strategy chapter, which talks about marketing plan and globalization. So in marketing as a whole in A2, there are just 4 chapters: elasticity, moving average, globalization, and marketing plan. Yeah, so Nishal, I think you might have joined a little bit later. I did talk in great detail about how to go about the timeline question. So soon as this stream ends, which will be soon, unfortunately, hopefully you can just rewind and go to that part, because it's in a lot of detail. It'll be hard for me to sum it up very quickly. And also, I've attempted a few other questions of P4 full length questions earlier, and they're also on the YouTube playlist. So that, I think you might be able to make good use of it tonight. Right, like I said, if I were to skip any one of these, it will be the least important of the chapters. The important ones you want to rely on. So I think, Musa, what I said was that the last chapter of each unit of A2 has a strategy chapter in it. Your special focus should, not to say that the other part of the syllabus are not important, but you should spend a little bit more time in the last chapter of each unit, which is called strategy. Okay. What do you say about organization structure here? What its purpose is, the communication and authority, how a business like this can, for example, this is a small business, so you would argue that it would have a wide organizational structure rather than a tall one where delegation will be more because there are fewer people and blah blah blah. So those discussions from that chapter should be applied here. So Mikey, each paragraph that you write must have analysis in it, because each paragraph, as I was talking about it a little bit earlier, each paragraph is a combination of knowledge, application, analysis, and evaluation. And each paragraph's analysis should have both the advantages and disadvantages within it. Should we do 2 paras of the things that you listed here? No, so if you talk, Yaman, if you talk about these 4 or 5 different parts of my answer, I wouldn't spend more than 1 paragraph on it, right? Obviously, leadership would be lengthier, but the other ones, 1 paragraph each. Can I just talk about the years with appendices because of the time? Look, it's difficult to make sense of the overall strategy when bits and pieces of it are missing, right? And that's what technically you'll end up doing if you skip years. If you can somehow bring that in, like I said, those years that don't have appendices, incorporate them into the years which have appendices and sort of make 1 paragraph out of those. That's a smart way to do this. What about critical path analysis? What's your question related to it? when advising the business, the new strategy can resistant to change views for all the different functional strategies. Yeah, absolutely. Look, any strategy you implement, Daniel, has to be executed by the workers, and if there's no willingness and there is resistance, then it becomes a big problem. So that can always be part of your evaluation. Do you have your full length answer PDF or something? Yeah, Timo, there's if you go to our website, in our store, we have a bunch of full written sample answers or past papers or other questions, things like that. So you can definitely look for it there. Which business operation chapter would you think is the most important? Look, it's like I said, I don't want to guide you in one way. Your guess is as good as mine. But if you were to ask me what my feeling is, I would spend a little bit more time on HR and finance. So I may be wrong, but I hope I'm right. With some initiative, why don't we say how it can be used in organizational structure instead of just writing about organizational structure? How would you how does the type of leadership impact the structure of your organization? I don't see that there's a direct connection of it. If you can, that's great, because you're using the concepts that should be used in an HR answer. If you can, that's fine. But again, it depends on what the information is given in the case study. You can't just keep making things up, right? Guest papers, we have answers. We'll be sharing that. If we haven't already, I'll ask the team to do it. But the questions of the guest paper has answers. I'll ask them again. You are not asked a direct question on CPA or critical path analysis in P4. That is in P3. In P4, you may be given a CPA diagram, and all you asked to do is read and see what it means. So completion time, what is the critical path, those sort of things. So it's interpretation, not calculation. Length of each answer. Musa, the answer to that question is obviously dependent upon the speed of your writing, your situation in that exam. But I'm thinking at least 2.5 to 3 pages. Look, you have 30 minutes. Within 30 minutes, you'll have 25 to 26 minutes of writing time, really. So you should be able to manage that. And this is obviously apart from the reading of the case study, which you would have already done at the start. Yes, exactly right. If it's a strategy given in the question, you dedicate one page to it, you fully exhaust it, and then you do your other suggestions, right? What do you think will be the threshold for paper 3? Look, CI says we're roughly around the same mark. So my guess would be something the same as November exam. So here's November 24 paper 3s. On average, you need like a 40 out of 60, 37. So let me take an average, right? So what's 40 plus 40? 80, 80 plus 40, 120, 120 minus 2 is 180. What's 118 divided by 3? 118 divided by 3. Yeah. Look, to be sure, to be on the border of A, you need a minimum 39, to be sure 40. Okay, 39 to 40 is like an A threshold for paper 3. I'm not talking about paper 4. For paper 4, you know what? Let me give you some good news, right? I'm sure we can use some of it. If you notice this, right? I'm going to zoom into the part that I really want you to focus on. So this was last year the members thresholds, right? So there are 3 components, 41, 42, 43. And you can see that out of 40, one of them required 26, one of them 23, and one of them 30. So that's 30 plus 50, 80, right? 80 divided by 3. What's 80 divided by 3? Oh, whoa, what happened to my calculator? 80 divided by 3. Yeah, 27 out of 40. If you ask me, 27 out of 40 is what you need to score in paper 4 to get an A. Okay, now the way to smartly approach this would be, After looking at the two questions, you will have obviously realized which one you are more confident with. And that's a question you really go with the intention of scoring 15 or 16 out of it, right? Nothing less than that. You really do justice to that. 2 years of your knowledge is just squeezed through in 2.5, 3 pages. So try to get like a 15 or a 16 in that question, which means even if you get a 10 in the other one, then you are on the borderline of that BNA. So that's how smartly within the exam you make decisions of what to spend more time on, what to spend less time on, just to help you make that decision. That's what I'm trying to do. So I think I would change up your structure a little bit, what you're suggesting. See, understand that each paragraph should talk about that one particular concept's advantage and disadvantage, right? For example, if there's a question on, let's say, business strategy, right? Let's talk about business strategy. And they ask you to discuss core competencies for future planning. Then my first paragraph, which will be a long one, will be about core competencies. And within that paragraph, I will talk about core competencies, advantages, and disadvantages to the business, and then evaluate it. And then my second paragraph would be another technique. Let's say that's Ansoff matrix. And the second paragraph will also have both the advantages and the disadvantages and its evaluation. And then a third technique, and then the final evaluation paragraph. Okay, so it's slightly different from what you're saying. Each point should have a balanced argument within it, which means each paragraph should have a balanced argument within it. What that means is you have highlighted the right knowledge point, you've used the right application context, you have decided the advantages and disadvantages on the business, and you've given your judgment as an evaluation whether this will work or not work, or what other things might be required to make this work. And that repeats for all the paragraphs except for the last one, which is just about evaluation. So will we be required to do any calculation? No, you won't be required to do any calculations. If you're given numbers and if you think you can calculate and use it, sure, go ahead and do it, but you won't be required. No, Musa, I've been saying this, that don't just leave your evaluation for the last paragraph, spread it across the entire answer. So analysis is important. It's 8 out of the 20 marks, but evaluation is equally important because it's 7 out of 20 marks. Sorry, Miss Papaya. Don't be scared. It's just nervousness to do well in it. I'm sure. You just keep at it. I'm sure you'll be okay. Right. So, guys, I think that's I think all I have to share with you. I think we've looked at how to manage your time here. We looked at how to structure our answer here. Here I showed you how to make best use of the timeline. And if you're given only a little bit of information in your second question, then how to obviously come up with the rest of it. So I think you should be equipped. Are there any last minute questions that I can take? Got another 2 more minutes that I can be here for. What is the grade threshold for 4.2? And last year it was very low. In November it was 23 out of 40, but before that it was 28. So it varies. I usually take out the average of any one series, which we saw of November 2024. It was 27 out of 40. Okay. You're most welcome, Musa. Try to do the best I can. Make things easier for you. The consequence advantages on how much would I get? I apologize to tell you this, but perhaps not too much, because when the question specifically asks for advantages and you mention disadvantages or vice versa, then you don't have much in the way of credible answer. So I don't think if you're gonna score that much. Can we apply AS content in the answers? Only if you've exhausted all your A2 content and you can't find anything, then yeah, you can definitely dip into your AS one. Yes, Yaman, absolutely. My wishes and prayers are all with you and everybody else. Of course, always happy to be here, happy to help. The way to quickly revise how all study chapters are linked, just get it through mind because my knowledge is not that good. Let me share a link in this video. In the comments, I'll share a link where I had made mind maps, which sort of, a nice picture of how different things connect. Maybe that will help you. So I will have that posted. I'll have my team do that artifact. That should maybe give you that holistic picture that you're looking for. Thank you, Mr. Papaya. I do hope I get well soon too. It was only this last day, Sunday, that I started feeling that I was fine. I know what happened. I spent too much time out in the sun, and it's just that. But thank you for your wish, and yeah, good luck. Okay, I feel like having both AS in AS helps a lot for A2. Again, girly pop, you will have to be a judge of what AD content is suitable for your answer, but try to exhaust your A2 stuff more and then go to AS. All right, so guys, I guess this is it. It's been wonderful having you guys here. I used to avoid doing these YouTube lives, but people like you make it really exciting. I get challenges thrown at me in real time. I'm more comfortable with live now. So I first gratitude and thanks to you guys. But more importantly, best of wish for tomorrow's exam and all the other ones. Trust me. You always know more than you think. It's always the anxiety that gets you. So, just try to get over the initial shock of the paper, which will be there in the first couple of minutes that, I don't know anything. But just focus, go through the sequences that we've seen, that read the question first, underline what are the important things that you need to know, then read through the case study, make notes in the first 15 minutes of reading, and then it's simply a matter of plugging in the answer. Where knowledge, application, asset evaluation go throughout your answer, pick the right thing and fit it in. Okay, so good luck, all the best, and hopefully I'll see you guys. Actually, no, I shouldn't say that. Hopefully I don't see you guys because you'll all pass with flying colors, but I will see you if you need any help with future plans, any guidance, anything that I can help you with. I'm more than happy to do that. So good luck. Hopefully this is and I know for sure the last time you'll be seeing your paper 4. So good luck for your futures. That's how I want to end this. Okay, yeah, take care. Bye bye. See you.